Can a man scoop a flame into his lap and not have his clothes catch on fire? Can he walk on hot coals and not blister his feet? So it is with the man who sleeps with another man's wife. He who embraces her will not go unpunished.
Well, that's good advice. Don't do it.
I had a bunch of building materials at our house, and we've been set. We need to have a fire. We needed to have a fire to burn off the building materials that we had in our basement. And so we had all of these large pieces of plywood and tons of like 2x4s and stuff. And it was just stuff I didn't want to throw out. I just wanted to have a fire. So we wanted to have a good bonfire with my kids. And so what we did was yesterday, we decided yesterday was the day. It was a cool fall Michigan afternoon. We thought for sure this is going to be a great day to do this. So we built this fire. We actually took stuff off the fire because it was a little too tall, but we got it was maybe 5 feet tall. And we thought, that looks like a good size burn. And so what we were going to do is slowly put wood on it to get it to burn away. So we start it, and it immediately is like the flames are like 20 feet tall, right? And we have this huge maple tree in our yard, and a couple of the branches go over where the fire is, but they're like, at least 18 or 19 feet high, right? So you're thinking that won't be a problem. And so, of course, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, there's no way that's going to start on fire, right? Like it's a living tree. Do you know how hard it is to catch a like green wood on fire? It's like impossible. You can never do it. And I'm sitting there telling myself this, right? I'm looking at the fire. I'm thinking, there's no way that's going to catch on fire. And my kids are like, Dad, that tree's going to catch on fire. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. It's like a living tree. It's going to be fine, right? And they're like, no, that looks like it's going to catch on fire. And so 20 feet high, the flames are going up. And sure enough, some of the branches started on fire. We were like spraying the hose everywhere, all over the fire, all over the tree. It was like immediately we need to fix this. So, So not only you put the coals in your lap and it'll catch your clothes on fire. And not only do you walk on the coals and your feet will blister, but also if you catch a fire too hot and it hits the tree, it's a good chance it'll set the tree on fire as well. So, and don't sleep with other people's wives.
We usually underestimate fires here in California.
Yeah, I was like, everybody in California is like, don't light that cigarette. The whole state could burn.
Don't do the gender reveal, please.
Yeah, it's like fireworks. Are you nuts?
Like I've never... Like, I seriously couldn't even imagine that a live tree would catch on fire. It just seems so crazy. But now I'm thinking about it in California, that's all that's burning out there, right?
Oh, yeah, everything. But I mean, the reason why it catches on fire in California is because it starts with a whole bunch of dead brush. Okay. Right? The dead brush is just like kindling. And so once it starts, I mean, yeah, a live tree will still burn. I mean, it was burning in Oregon. I mean, you get it hot enough, it'll catch, but it just takes a while. There's a saying that says even if it's close enough to a fire, even a wet log will burn, because it'll eventually happen. But it's the reason why it's so bad here in California is because we always put the fires out, and so the dead brush and the bottom layer just builds up to the point where once it lights, there's no putting it out because it's like there's way too much of it.
Yeah.
It's all dry. And so cool.
So 2 proverbs for one, right? Don't put fire in your lap.
2 proverbs for one. Well, it is Thursday. And so the theme of today is odd or not. This is where you can send us in something that you do or have done that's probably you're not sure if it's exactly the norm. You send it to us, and we will tell you if that's odd or not. Today, I'm going to put myself on the chopping block. I'm going to tell you something that I have, honestly, not even exaggerating, I have never, ever told somebody this.
No way.
This is something that there are 0 people on planet Earth that know that I do, and I do it on a regular basis. And I'm pretty sure I know how you guys are going to vote. So we'll leave that to after the. We'll discuss that after the reading. But Steve, have you got some more Romans for us?
I've got some Romans all up in here. All right, so Romans 1:18 through 32. It is, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man, and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up in lust of their heart to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. Because they exchanged truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And their men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passions for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they do not do them, but give approval to those who practice them. All right, and that was Romans 1:18 through 32.
That was a lot. So having read that, I really liked the part. Well, I don't want to say I liked it, but the thing that just jumped out at me is it's describing, all the people who know in the nature of, we know what's right and wrong just inside of ourselves. And one of the things they get called is inventors of evil. It's like, these are people who ran out of things to do and they're like forging the frontier of evil, creating new evil that hasn't been invented yet.
So you're against technology?
What does that mean, inventors of evil? What's that?
You're against technology then?
Yeah. No, I'm not
and
against
innovation.
Technology is not evil, Jordan. If technology was evil, we couldn't be doing this show. Someone had to invent this, which we love technology.
Correct.
But it can be used for evil, right? But inventors of evil, I thought that was funny. It's a description of somebody. So
Yeah, what I thought was interesting is where it says God is plain to them because God has shown it to them. All right, that I think is potentially the most interesting thing here. That it's
what is it in that? Is that like just a moral law or God's existence?
Well, it goes on into the next verse. It says, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived. So we've seen his eternal power and his divine nature. And ever since creation of the world, we've seen these things in the things that have been made. So we look at the world around us, we see the things that have been made, and we can see that there's, number one, an eternal power behind it, and that there's some divine nature behind it. And I think that's what it is, that we look around ourselves at nature and we can see that God does exist. And, there's no way that, that all of this could just, happen by accident. I think that's what it's trying to explain. And it even says, hey, we're without excuse because this was made clear to you. It was made plain to them.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people see God through nature and stuff like that, but for me personally, I'm always impacted when I see it in other people. So let me give you an example. So I have a younger sister, and every time I talk to her on the phone, like just because she's in Pennsylvania still, I'm always overly impressed with how like God moves through her and what she's doing. And she's given me advice back on things. And I just remember her as my sister that I would pick on but also have to mentor in a lot of ways. Like there's been upset moments where she just didn't know what to do. And I was the one giving advice. Now it feels full circle and God's kind of provided me her, like he's showing me a different viewpoint of like me through her. And I think that's really fun. So I couldn't agree more with this passage from Paul right here in these couple verses. Because to me, whenever I talk to my sister, it's plain to me that God is the creator of the universe.
It's fun to have siblings that you're close to. I come from a big family, and I've got 8 brothers and sisters. And over the course of time, when I lived with them, you said you picked on your sister. When I lived with them, I was also frustrated, and I didn't know that the relationship I had with my siblings was how it was going to play out, because I didn't care for them when we were in the house and we were fighting over things. We were always sick of each other. It was just, they were always there. But now they're my closest peer group. Those are my best friends. And I think brothers and sisters is a cool relationship that we have. And there's nobody I'd rather hang out with than my brothers and sisters. And so it's a bit of a sidetrack, but that's cool that you have that with your sister.
Yeah, I have one sister, so I can focus on that one sister. How many brothers and sisters do you have, Dave?
8.
Okay, so
if I lose one.
Well, you have 8 people to spread the wealth to and also receive back. I have 1. I could keep my sole focus going.
Well, I really only have 7 because I have a brother who's actually still only 15. And I mean, he's got a lot of growing up to do before he and I are good friends. But the rest of them, they're the bomb. Bomb.com. To use a very, very relevant saying.
Yeah.
They are the bomb.com.
Correct.
So what I find interesting in this passage, which is Paul saying, well, it's self-evident and everybody knows it. And the people who deny it, they're very arrogant and haughty, and they've gone so far that they're not hearing anything from God anymore, and they've got all their intellect working against logic. And that's true. The people who are really against any kind of a faith, I do find as very sort of cocky, arrogant, and the people that they will promote and push up are people that are like them, and they'll make fun of. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he's like a physicist, really smart guy, but he's so condescending to anybody who has a different viewpoint than his that he can't share a viewpoint without also condescending people who would disagree with him. And to me, it's a turnoff, because I hear his speech and it's halfway explaining something that's interesting, where it's like, ooh, wow, cool. I didn't know that about space or time or matter. And then the other half of the time, tearing down those that would disagree. And oftentimes it's the people who would posture that this was created and that something didn't just come out of nothing. And Paul's like, yeah, look, at everybody knows that's just self-evident, and they don't need to be able to articulate it. You're born with a conscience. You're born with this moral compass that if you violate, you feel like you violated something, and you didn't author it because you wanted to violate it. So you're not the one who's choosing to feel this amount of shame or disappointment in yourself. And so it's there. And you've got two responses. You either recognize who that is, your creator who loves you, who put that in you and said, I've given you the tools, or you spin your wheels and you create a huge intellectual structure to be able to refute it, that it even exists. And that seems to be the avenue that a lot of people, certainly in the science community, they'll sort of go.
Yeah. And when you look at this section, you start to see that there's just tons and tons and tons of things that are the result of thinking that way, that like you're going to say, all right, God is not the answer, even though this says it's clear that God put it out there that he was the answer. And then the natural result is you're going to become, sort of all sorts of negative things, right? Like it spent like 5 or 6 verses going through a list of things where you'll start not thinking reasonably, and you'll do things that are evil and boastful and slanders, and you'll have envy and murder and strife. It's just this long list, and it starts to feel like it's almost a judgmental list, right? But I think when we get into the next chapter, it will frame it a little bit differently. But the point is that we're all sinners, but this is saying that if you're going to just eliminate the God, right? And eliminate the reason, the logical reasoning behind how we got here, well, then the natural response is you're going to be going down all of these roads. But the idea that you are sinful, that's inherent. Like we are sinful, but if you're going to get rid of logic, these are the things that are going to start creeping into your life. So
this is like 10 or 15 verses in a row describing the bad race.
Yeah.
And so that's people who have set their course and determined their minds to be separate from the truth. This is what is the natural order of things. And that's what I would call the bad race.
Yeah. Imagery wise, I imagine sin is like that big oak tree you're talking about, right? With like a trunk of sin, and then it could branch out in all sorts of places with these verses. And then God is just this huge flagpole, right? It's God, and then right up. And it's we can overcomplicate it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as self-evident as we make it out. But ironically, our rationality gets in the way of the self-evidence that Paul describes.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting that the last verse of the chapter, and that, like, hey, if you know God's righteousness, you're doubly responsible. To me, that's a little scary.
Right. Once you know, that's what we said in the Proverbs a couple days ago, was like, okay, well, now I know, so now I'm responsible. That stinks. Oh, I lost my train of thought. What were you going to say on that? Oh, yeah. Just remembered it. One of the things that I immediately think when we're talking about ideas on, well, what is this relationship to God? God's in all of us and all that. It's a little bit of, it's putting the message out there to other people, because that's how Paul sort of phrases it. And that is, look at, we were all born with it. It's plain to them. But when I think I read it, I want to make sure that I say, even though I'm probably not the best debater, if Neil deGrasse Tyson was here and he had a microphone, he would make me look not very smart, right? Because he's coming in with a lot of information, and I would, probably flounder and I wouldn't look good at all. But at the end of the day, whether or not I can defeat somebody intellectually on whether or not it's true for them, I can read this and say, it's definitely true for me. I know that there is a God, and I know that I have a moral compass and a moral conscience that I didn't decide should be there. It's just intrinsically there, and my faith supports that. And so my takeaway is, well, I can at least say it's true for me, regardless of how other people might interpret me saying, well, you just know that God is real. I do.
Yeah, that's the idea. God's made himself known to us, and we are to live as if he's watching, right? And so we need to run the good race with the intention to win. So, all right. So, Davey.
So we're going to do this odd or not thing, and I volunteered, and now I'm starting to get second questions, or second thoughts. But no, I promise. I said there is something that I do that there's not one other human being that knows this, and you'll know why in a second, because it's my assumption is it might be a little odd.
Will this affect me living with you?
It might. Yeah.
And I feel like there's nothing you haven't told me, so I'll be surprised if this actually holds true. But
if I told you, then I'll be surprised at that too. Because it's, I can't imagine anybody volunteering this information. But so one of the things that I don't really ever do, and I know that people do this, but I don't clip my toenails. I can just peel them off perfectly every time. I don't have a problem with it. I can just reach down and peel it off. And but here's the problem. Like, I bite my nails. I bite my fingernails too. Like, I didn't even own a pair of clippers. And if you bite your pinky nail, well, what do you do when you're done? It's a pinky nail. It basically disappears, right? But when you're peeling off, when you're getting rid of your toenails, you're usually on the side of your bed in your room. And now, and I know everybody clips their toenails. What do you do with that toenail, right? It's big. It's too big. I don't want to just be in the room. It'll show up again. It's big enough that it's not going to just disappear into the fabric of the universe. It's gonna come back again, and I don't want it to. So what do? You get up, you go to the bathroom, and throw it in the garbage, probably. Well, I mean, that's a long way, and I just don't want to do it. And so I got this idea one time of, I want to get rid of this, but I don't want to get up. So I well, lighters all over the place because I used to smoke. I had a lighter on my dresser. So I thought, I wonder what will just happen if I burn it. So I sat there and I just cooked this toenail into a little ball of black ash. And then it basically poof. Now it's sort of gone. Just wipe it on your pants and go to bed. And so I did it one time and I thought that was a weird thing to do. And I have probably done that for the last 2 or 3 years with every single one of my big toenails.
All right, I'll cast my vote first. Odd and change immediately is my advice.
I should get up and go and use the trash can, huh?
All right, I have a clarifying question.
Okay, go ahead.
How bad does it smell?
Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. It has an odor. But you get used to it. Yeah, you do this for a few years and it becomes just a thing. And so I have a little torch lighter in the top drawer of my dresser to get rid of my toenails so I don't it's become a little game to myself.
Have you had to replace this toenail lighter since you started this 3 years ago? I imagine you've used it a bunch. It's
a butane torch because the regular lighter takes a long time. You got to sit there for a while and it starts to crackle.
And who has time?
So the torch gets it done quicker. Which I like that. And I have a refill container that'll refill that lighter.
All right. So kind of
I don't smoke anymore, so I don't go through lighters like I used to.
So putting on the work hat, let's go to root cause. I think the root cause is that you're doing it in the bed. I think if you, no matter how you get rid of how you have that toenail,
I couldn't do it in the living room. People would judge me.
You know where you throw it away? That's where people normally do it.
I don't want anybody to know about this. So this is just between us.
Yeah. We're just having a conversation.
These are only for people who are running the good race. Who know not to judge.
So
that's one of the
things. Does
things.
it smell as bad as burnt hair?
Yeah, it's almost exactly probably the same. I don't know when the last time I smelled burnt hair was, but my guess is it's probably identical.
Or worse, right? It could smell like toe fungus plus burnt hair.
Yeah, but if hair burns, it's a lot of hair. So it's probably a plume of smoke.
Okay.
With a toenail, it's big in that you don't want it in your carpet, but it's not like big as in a whole chunk of hair or something like that.
Okay. So I'm going to vote odd.
One strain.
I'm going to vote odd on this. 110%.
It's like 3/4 of an inch of an incense rod.
And I wanted to give you the best, I wanted to give it to you, but it's totally odd. Totally 100% odd.
Okay, so I was thinking maybe one of you guys would say, "Oh, I also have a."
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I won't
Lauren
even tell you my
Lauren
situation.
is looking at me with a judgmental face on. Put yourself on camera and vote, Lauren.
That is very, very odd. And now I'm wondering how many times you've stepped on other toenails that I guess don't go in the trash can or get lit.
Oh, they all get lit. I don't just flick toenails.
I thought it was just the big toenail that you lit.
That's true. I don't like the little ones.
So the little ones just are somewhere in your carpet?
No.
Yeah, I think we need to go back to that. That's also a little odd that you're taking your toenails and just kind of flinging them out.
I burn the little ones too.
Man, our vacuum cleaner has broken so many times, and there's weird random holes in the bag. I don't know where it could have come from.
The thing is, you don't do it that often, right? Toes, how often do you clip your toenails?
Putrefied large toenails.
Maybe once a month, but it's hard. You get the little, you can only get it so close, otherwise it starts to burn your fingers. So
naturally.
All right, so I'm getting the distinct.
Yeah, it's a little weird
indication that that's weird. Okay.
So, all right.
And Steve, have I told you that story before?
Never.
I told you.
Yeah, this is totally unique.
There is not a human being on earth that knows that. And that's why we're going to keep it between us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so all the other good racers, I know that's going to be tough to follow. But please let us know for next week what you want us to decide is odd or not. I think after hearing Davies, I might be inclined to say not because we are starting hot.